Hello and welcome to Skeptic Hangout, the place where we sit back, relax, and chit-chat about intriguing and sometimes controversial topics through the lens of skepticism. I'm Josh, joined by our ghostly co-host Richard, and once again here to help us with our investigation from recovering from religion, Helen Green. So grab your skull pin beer, hot chocolate, or ghastly tea as we talk today's topic, paranormal investigations. This is Skeptic Hangout, Paranormal Investigations. Okay, so I know Richard has some experience doing paranormal investigations. Do you have any, Helen?
Yes, I've gone on a couple. I've gone on ghost tours, and I did a couple investigations when I was involved with my pagan group back in the day, which is only like 6 years ago. So it's not back in the day, but I'm going to say it's back in the day.
Did you ever come?
I was going to ask because I was the resident skeptic in the ghost hunting group that I was part of. You were coming at it from a completely different perspective, I'm guessing. Then, so how was that? What kind of things were you doing, and what kind of headspace were you in at the time? Did you believe were you actively looking for spirits that you believed in?
I'm going to talk a little bit more when I was a office manager for a psychic education center up to 2020. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And we actually had ghost investigators that came in and did ghost investigations on our site and would talk to me about paranormal investigations, and they were doing from a scientific quote unquote people perspective, that they actually had gone to school and learned how to do this. And listen y'all motherfuckers, just because a school said that gives you credits for a certain degree doesn't mean the degree is legitimate. I'm going to let you all know that right now, because of these people that I talked to and knew. They thought that they got a formal education on skepticism and how to vet for ghosts and all that type of stuff. And they learned how to use certain equipments. I'm sure if you've seen enough ghost shows, like Ghost Adventures, best show. If you want to watch a good ghost show, a bunch of bro dudes looking for ghosts, watch some Ghost Adventures.
I love that show anymore.
I love that show so much. It's like a guilty pleasure. It's so bad, it's good. Or you watch Ghost what other ghost shows? I know
there was Ghost Hunters with the
Ghost
Tats
Hunters.
Crew. That used to be the one I watched when I believed in that stuff.
Okay, so, and they look like they're doing very scientific equipment. They have electrical beaters and MVPs. I don't know what to call it anymore. EVPs. And once you understand how those things work, all the mystery and spookiness and otherworldly stuff kind of gets taken away, because you understand that there's certain things that equipment's going to pick up on that are completely natural phenomena. And they claim to be able to pick up on certain energies and stuff like that. And
then they take those giant leaps and say those energies are ghosts.
Yeah, and to be fair to myself, and when I was a witchy, ghosty, I believe in all this shit stuff too, I would throw tarot cards and think that I was talking to a ghost and getting certain information and stuff like that, when really I was tricking myself, because I had gotten a certain history about a place, I got certain information, and I was making inferences. because that's what you do. Because we're all looking for patterns. That's what we do. We are pattern-seeking creatures, and that's what I did. And then when I realized, even with people with the more science, again, quote unquote, people, scientific equipment was doing. Listeners. Yeah, they were doing the same thing. Even with scientific equipment, they're looking for pattern. And the idea of when you're being objective about your science is that you're letting the data to present itself and not inferring your own biases onto the data.
And just having the equipment gives you the illusion that there's been some science done here, that you are following a scientific process.
Right.
Like I've looked into the spirit boxes. One of my friends used the spirit box, and he believes he got a ghost that spoke to him through it. And if you don't know what the spirit box is, it's the one that'll like go randomly through the radio tuner, and you'll eventually pick up random words, and every once in a while you'll get a hit that matches up what you asked about. And my friend had thrown out the fact that I can't remember his question exactly, but I remember the answer because I'm an alcoholic. He said he asked the ghost something, and it said whiskey back to him. He's like, what are the odds that I ask a question specifically having to do with whiskey and the ghost says whiskey? I don't know if he's like asking if the ghost, if he wanted anything to drink. I'm not sure what it was, because I imagine you're going to have not a lot of people are serving you alcohol in the ghost netherrealm. But the thing is, people are told that this is what it is, and so they'll allow it. They won't think, have there been scientific theories that have confirmed there was a ghost talking to us? Have there been experiments that have shown this is the only explanation that this points to is ghosts, and that there aren't other things that could be happening? EVPs are another example of, I'll be honest, even when supposedly they're very clear and I'm primed on it, which priming is what a lot of people do with EVPs, is they'll tell you what word you're supposedly supposed to hear. I don't even hear it very well. Like occasionally I'll hear one that like kind of sounds like it, but the majority of the time from EVPs, if I can understand what it's saying, it was somebody else in the room and they didn't realize that they got picked up in the room. Like maybe they whispered something like, "Oh my God, I heard my name." No, that wasn't an EVP. That was your buddy talking in the background there.
Or even if you're hearing like so that's going through the static that they say that they're saying like help or something. If you close your eyes and you don't have the visual prompt, it's just garbled nonsense. Like if you don't have the visual to interpret it for you, if you just close your eyes and you're not anticipating the prompt, it's all garbled nonsense. Like you might be able to get like the word help out of it, but if that's only if you're really reaching.
These ghosts are really like short and precise on it, to the point where like if you heard like a whole paragraph of something, like something well thought out and spoken, you might have a point of like, oh, this is beyond my capability of understanding where this came from. But it's always like just enough to get a word, maybe two really quick syllable words that you can probably make out. But I've never heard like a coherent sentence of like, my name is John Wayne, I haunt this house and I'm a racist. I've never heard that come out in any ghost story before. It's always something vague where you can't really point to it.
There's a huge lack of skepticism in this kind of community and in these groups.
True.
And even to the point where, as I said, I was a resident skeptic in one of them. And the fact that you have to have somebody who is a skeptic rather than everybody in the group employing skepticism speaks volumes about them. And one of the things that in relation to skepticism that I hear a lot in them is when they say things like, well, how do you explain that? Almost as if you haven't got the explanation, then by default it is a ghost. And that's not how things work. You don't have to have an explanation. If I can't explain something, it doesn't mean that ghosts can't exist. Do exist, sorry. What we need is a good reason to understand and to explain and to demonstrate that ghosts exists. A lack of an explanation doesn't make the idea true by default. And that's what's to me, it seems universally almost in these groups that's kind of the default position, that if you haven't got an explanation, then it is true. And the slightest little bit of confirmation bias that goes off makes it true. Anything.
It's the ghost of the gaps, Richard.
Yeah,
it's
the ghost of the
gaps.
Weird how these arguments can fall into different conversations. But it's also our brains, if we're in an area where we find it spooky and we've already been told something could happen in this area, you might feel something that you would not otherwise feel if you weren't primed to feel this. We did this Granada Theater. It's in Ontario, California, supposedly haunted theater, but also they used to do abortions in the rooms above where the theater was at. There was like a hospital that did abortions, and they told us that we went into this room that lots of times women will start to feel nauseous when they're in this room. And we had a guy without a uterus suddenly like, oh my God, I'm not feeling too good, because he was so primed up on it. He couldn't even keep the story straight about who's supposed to get sick about it.
Yeah, priming is another thing.
He was a woman in a past life. That's why. That's why he was feeling nauseous.
But priming is a huge thing again with these groups, and even to the point where most of these investigations are carried out at night, where it's dark and you're more likely to be prone to, say, mistaking things in the dark or via torchlight or infrared camera, whatever equipment you're using, whatever equipment you've been conned into buying from these very expensive ghost equipment sites that sell them.
Listen, a couple of Halloweens ago, I downloaded a free ghost app on my phone, because I was just because it was free. You're just like fine, and my house is so haunted. And I'm because every place I would do the radar, there was ghosts everywhere, and I'm just like, okay.
I'm just wondering how the phones knew how to look for ghosts. I don't
know. It's magic. It's magic. Magic technology.
I mean, I played with that, but I realized pretty quickly it was a simulation. But I know some people can con people out of it.
It lasted about an hour, and then I deleted it from my phone because I was
same with me.
It's fun. I think that this idea of ghost hunting and that's, it's cool, because there are certain things that have a certain atmosphere. I've been to the old forts in St. Augustine, and I've been to where the witch trials were in Salem, and especially New England has a lot of ghosts and witch history and stuff like that, and that priming comes into play, and especially when there's a lot of murder and very tragic stuff, your empathy kicks in, so there's that emotional thing that happens as well, especially when you hear these stories of people that were disenfranchised or just died under tragic circumstances because of mob mentality or whatever, or they died in battle and they died for bullshit reasons and stuff. That empathy is going to kick in. And then if you're prone to have a supernatural bent to your beliefs, when they're saying that I'm picking up a ghost, or I'm getting this, I'm getting this on the voice phenomenon and all that type of stuff, you're already primed, because you're having that emotional reaction. Because we're when I hear tragic stories of people that died of really bad things in the past, my empathy kicks in. I'm like, holy fuck, I'm so sorry that happened to you, and we have those natural instincts because we care about each other. And when those things start kicking in, your ability to discern, because we're emotional creatures, kind of gets pushed aside. And you don't go, well, is this really happening, or I just want to believe that there's a ghost communicating to me about something tragic that happened to them? Because it's never the mundane people that die folding laundry. What is that as your unfinished task when you die, that you didn't finish your laundry?
I wish I had a ghost that vacuum.
It's always a lover died, or your child died, or a kid died and they didn't get to grow up, and they must have, it is always a tragic tale out of a novel. It is never like I died because, and my unfinished task was that I didn't set the dryer.
Well, like the way it was explained to me before I do skepticism, and this was how I was able to square it somewhat with my no belief in the afterlife. Is I had heard it was something on Sci-Fi Channel that was giving like a documentary about ghosts and like explaining this phenomenon, and it was supposedly that ghosts aren't necessarily spirits, but it's like almost like recording on a record kind of thing. So
I've heard
like
that too.
when the timing is just right, and if there's like the right rocks in the same area, it'll just be replaying that same situation over again. It's almost like a haunted hologram like thing. But I'm also like, we haven't even figured out how to do holograms with technology yet, and apparently there are rocks that are able to do it better than anything that we've come up with, which again doesn't disprove it, but it also doesn't give me any confidence in the fact that that's what's going on there.
Yeah, I'll want to come back to that in a little bit, but one of the things that strikes me is the kind of around specific events, and that this is what you've just said brought me onto that, because I remember hearing the story about York in the city York, where a guy saw apparently a legion of Roman soldiers, and that was kind of the idea behind that specific haunting, that it was a tape recording kind of event that had been captured in the rock or the atmosphere, however it works. But that brings me onto the larger point of the kind of the priming that goes off, and the kind of mythology that grows up around specific sightings, because we've got there's a place not too far from me which is allegedly a haunted place, and it's they were cutting through I guess they were cutting through some graveyard of a monastery to build a link road between Manchester and Sheffield, and I reckon maybe the mid-80s, the late 80s, and this is when all this phenomenon started, and it all started with a specific event of these two security guards who witnessed certain things happening. And there's kind of a folklore and a mythology, and if you ever look at the kind of the story behind that in our local area, if anybody ever speaks about it, you'll get the same things recounted. There were girls, there were some children singing Ringa Ringa Roses near a big like electricity pylon, and certain other things happened. And that's the kind of, this is gospel according to that kind of ghost hunting things. But I actually saw an interview with one of the security guards from the last few years, and he actually said it thought some of the events happened. It didn't discount all of the events, but he said the thing with the Ringa Ringa Roses things never even happened. It doesn't even know where that came from. It's just something that's been embellished onto the story later on by somebody, an unknown source, and yet it's become kind of folklore as a part of the whole event. So, you know, I was wondering if any of you two guys had kind of have well-established stories in your area, or that you know about, that kind of fall into the same thing where people have kind of embellished on it over the time.
Well, there's a website, I think it's called shadow.net. It's been a long time since I've been there, but it would collect tons of stories, and like it would tell what geographical location it was happening at. And like I would go to some of the ones in my area, like there was and apparently this is something that happens in a lot of roads, and I can't remember the explanation for it. But if you stop at a certain part, the ghost at a certain time of the night allegedly would start pushing your car backwards, and it'd be pushing it supposedly seemingly uphill. And like there's stuff like that I would investigate just because I've seen it online. That they've had that in a lot of areas, and that's kind of the closest I've done. I've also investigated like a supposed murder house, and we were breaking an entry. We probably weren't supposed to be in there, but it was abandoned. And inside there was
you
like
rebel,
there was graffiti on the walls, like if you stay in this room, the doors will lock and you won't be able to get out. But the doors were off the hinges, so there wasn't really anything to it. But it was kind of there was established haunting there because there was murders. Apparently, I'm not even sure if there was any actual murders there, but it was rumored to have murders, and there's stuff like that. But I've never seen anything in any of those places. It just seemed like an abandoned house. Even when I believed in it, I'm like, this doesn't feel what I would think a haunting would feel like to me.
There is a site in Florida that I've been to where the car we stopped and the car went uphill. But it's just a perception thing.
Yeah, an
That's what I
optical
heard.
illusion. Yeah.
It's an optical illusion. It's not anything paranormal. But you like optically you're looking like your car is moving uphill. But it's just an optical illusion. It's not anything that's actually like anything about the environment that's paranormal. You're just like, oh, because once you get out of the car and you look, if someone's in the car and they have it in drive and it moves, you see it going uphill, but it's like the way the road dips.
Yeah.
It moves upward. But it's just the way that the road dips and the way that the angle looks. It's like, have you ever seen a swing moving by itself? There's something about the way that it's angled that it looks like it's moving by itself. It's just because of the alignment of the way that the ground is. That's all it is. It's not, but everybody was like, oh, it's because of spirits. And I'm like, no, it's just because of the way the alignment of the ground is that makes your car look like it's going uphill. It's nothing paranormal going on, you know? And I think that, and like, you know how when people go into and they say that they're like they'll go into like, let's say Germany, and they'll go to Auschwitz and they claim that they're talking to the dead people that died there, but they all speak English.
Well, I think when you die, you have to take a course in all the world languages.
Yeah, and I'm like, when they speak, like, let's say they were from, I'm like, when they speak Polish, you know what I'm saying? Like, or like German, or like, you know, or Austrian, like a different, like they wouldn't speak English. Like it's always these kind of ad hoc explanations, like, well, you know, well, they're on another plane, so they would talk into the language that I would know. I'm like, why would the spirit do that? Like, why? Like, why would they interpret? Because you just happen to be psychic and you can talk to dead people, like or they do the electric voice phenomena. Or yeah, it's a universal translator.
Exactly.
On the other side.
Everyone gets one when they die. Yeah,
everybody gets one when they die. Like it just like all these ad hoc explanations onto why things are weird. You know, like, and I'm not like even the mundane stuff, like, you know, when I was talking about the car, it looks like it's just like, no, it's just because it's an optical illusion and because of the way that the ground is slanted that your car looks like it's going uphill.
It's
not anything spooky or scary. It's just a thing.
It's still crazy to me that people jumped, because that was a haunted location on that website. It's still amazing to me, cars moving and they go ghost. I don't understand where you make that jump from the cars moving to a ghost to, like, I'd be perfectly happy if people go like, this is something weird, I don't know what it is, I'd like to find out more. Like, you don't have to have all the answers on it, but you don't get to jump to like another weird conclusion. Like one of the sightings I had when I believed in ghosts and what I thought confirmed it, and looking back now it's really shit evidence, was we were on top of the balcony of that theater again. We went there a couple times. We liked that theater. It actually had like it had some eeriness to it, and they had like videos of like things moving, which I now think the people that own the theater were showing bullshit videos to people about things moving on their own and candles putting themselves out. But we were on the balcony and I saw a figure, like a shadowy figure, move really fast across the bottom, but I couldn't hear any noise. And they kept the place kind of dark, so it was but with just enough light where I could see that mask go across. And I'm like, at first I was like, maybe it was all in my head. My friend next to me, he said, "Did you see that?" And that was my explanation for, oh, I saw a ghost move real fast down there. But there could have been anything in the world that I just couldn't account for that could have been that mass. It wasn't like it didn't like glow, it didn't like say boo or anything. It was just like a real fast moving mass that I saw go across there. There could have been anything that I never tried to recreate the situation to see like something I couldn't take into account for. I don't know if there was like maybe somebody in the projector booth like moving their hand across something and making it something happen. Like there are a billion explanations, but I went straight to ghosts when I saw that.
It is very interesting that like we tend to want to fill in the gaps. Like us as human beings, like I've learned to get like okay with I don't know. Like I don't know. Like because I've had plenty of weird shit things happen to me that I cannot explain. Plenty.
Yeah.
But I'm always like, I don't know. I like to sometimes I try to dissect it as much as I can, but sometimes I just come to the I don't know conclusion. I'm like it's probably not anything supernatural. It's just something that I can't explain because I wasn't able to do more investigation or I didn't have the knowledge or the equipment to do it. That's okay. You can just go, I don't fucking know.
And
It's okay.
Paranormal investigations is like it's hard to like recreate whatever weird situation happened to where you could investigate it because you can't factor in like what's going on outside the supposedly haunted house or stuff like that. You can make guesses about it, but like I don't see how you can eliminate all possibilities and jump to ghosts because I know I've heard other cultures don't even have the concept of ghosts. So finding something weird happening and go, oh, that the only explanation for this allegedly haunted house is a ghost is because of cultural bias. Other cultures, they'll say witchcraft is doing it or something like that. And saying ghosts would make no sense to them because they don't have the concept of a ghost. It's very much us going off our cultural biases that I guess the whole planet or our whole community is priming us with without even trying is why we jump to those conclusions so fast.
So let's talk about these shows and the actual shows. I remember before ghost hunting shows, in a time before ghost hunting shows, when you'd kind of buy books from the bookstores about photographs of ghost hauntings, and you'd get the same kind of shit photographs in every single book spread out, and there'd be people who you'd go to someone's house and they'd have like 50 books on ghost huntings and it'd just be the same photographs throughout. They only need one book.
A lot of orbs and explanations on why those orbs are.
No, this was pre-orb. This was pre-orb.
Remember those Time Life books you could get, like if you called in and you get like a bunch of like I think it was in the 90s, like where you could call in and you would describe like you would get like a Time Life subscription and you would get a bunch of paranormal books of like ghost hunting and aliens and like a bunch of paranormal stuff. Yeah, I remember that stuff.
and that was, but then all of a sudden, it seems kind of like the early 90s. Sorry, we got kind of this phenomena of ghost hunting TV shows sprung up.
I blame the X-Files.
Okay, I blame the X-Files for a lot of weird conspiracy theory shit. I love the X-Files, but they really
I actually don't think it's the X-Files, and here's why. In the 80s there was a show, and I don't remember what. I think it was called Ghost Watch. It was produced by the BBC.
That wasn't a show. That was a special movie where they faked a ghost.
Haunting.
I saw a thing about that. They were talking about it on YouTube.
I watched it live when it was on. I remember
watching
it live.
Oh, I'm jealous.
And it came on, and it was on Halloween. At the time,
there was a disclaimer
TV, every Halloween
started.
you'd have a ghost program on, and that was the one for this particular year. And
there was a disclaimer before it started, but anybody that tuned in a couple minutes late, it looked like a regular news program.
And it came on, and it was a fake haunted. Like they'd go into this house and do this investigation. I
saw a thing on YouTube about it, but I didn't. Because I wasn't in England at the time, and I was watching regular American cable.
Yeah, and that was hugely popular, and it wasn't too long after that the kind of, what did they call the one with Yvette Fielding that they did, which was the first major kind of ghost genuine air quotes inverted commas kind of ghost hunting show that came along, and that kind of followed on the trails of that. It was kind of in the same vein, and I blame that for the ghost hunting shows, and
especially in England.
yeah, and then there was I can't remember the name of the show in England that we had. The first kind of proper ghost hunting show in the first 90s, but that was the one that seemed to kick off like the worldwide, the kind of Eurocentric and US centric ghost hunting shows that came after it. And
I'll say it's probably a combination of that, but Americans aren't cultured. We didn't start paying attention to what you guys were making until Doctor Who got popular over here. So most of us didn't know about Ghost Watch.
No, we were watching like Unsolved Mysteries in the 80s and the early 90s, and they had ghost hunting shit on there. And then it went into like I remember watching like when I was in my early 20s, like watching like ghost hunting shows on MTV.
Oh,
And
I thought that was all fake on there. Like they had to go.
No, because they it might have been. I don't know. No, they had some other stuff too, but like that was like the predecessor to things that was like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Adventures. And
Most Haunted is the one I was thinking.
God,
that was the first one that I remember.
I remember that show. Like there was a lot of ghost hunting shit that happened, and then there was some that were really bad produced.
Well, they're the reenactments too. And when I believed in this shit, I love the reenactments. I think it was called A Haunting, something like that. It was like on the Travel Channel, and they'd have like supposedly haunted location. They give you the whole history with really badly acted reenactments. And I remember this is how good my skepticism though was. Anytime somebody got possessed, I'm like, that one's bullshit. But the ones without the possessions, those are true.
I always found the ones that like the ones that would like I think the reason why I like Ghost Adventures so much because they went into a lot of the history of they went all over the world and talked a lot about the history about like particular places, about like what occurred there and stuff like that. So I always found like that stuff super fascinating. And then but like also the bro dudes were doing like ghost investigations.
That's why I couldn't take terribly. That one.
And I was just like, I love this show. It's terrible. I love it. Like because they took themselves so seriously.
Is that the one that has a museum in Las Vegas with all
yes, he has a museum. Oh, it's great. Well, and also too, like I love who's the couple that they did like The Conjuring about?
Lorraine.
Okay, these motherfuckers.
Yeah, they are terrible.
Like there are people that have gone into like their museum and like are touching all their shit, and they're just like, you're gonna become possessed if you touch their shit, and like nothing ever happens to anybody that touches any of their stuff, and they have like they've been proven to be frauds. To be frauds, and people are just like, no, they're completely legitimate. And I've met people that think that the Lorraines are actual ghost hunters, and I think her husband was the one that decided after the Amityville horror situation happened, actually that's what kicked them off, because it was such a famous case because the son ended up murdering the family, and then they said that like basically made their money off of fucking tragedy.
Well, like the murder that took place in the house before the supposed events of the story or what the movie happened, that was real. People were actually murdered.
That's what I'm talking about.
But that house, everybody that's lived in it after the events of the movie and the book, they've said it's perfectly fine. There's nothing that goes on there. Plus, in the back of the book, this is a boring book, by the way. I don't like Amityville at all because they had to try and make it seem slightly real. So like all the events are not that extraordinary, where I'd rather a ghost story just like go balls to the walls crazy. At least they had things that contradicted like the weather. Like they had hoofs of like a demon outside in the snow that they found, but they looked on the calendar date for when they had said that had happened, and it was like a sunny fucking day with no snow in there. So like a lot of their claims they didn't think people would investigate them on, and like the whole back of the book is just like, this was fake, this was fake, this was fake. And the Warrens just attached themselves to everything. A lot of the supposed investigations that they did, even the ones that they mentioned in the movies, they may have like showed up to the house one day, and that was about the extent of it. Like they just like make sure our names are attached to this story, and we're out.
Yeah.
So like known con artists. That's probably that's one of the reasons why I can't stand those movies. It'd be okay maybe if the movies were actually good too, but I find them annoying, and I find that they like romanticize those assholes.
And I think that's the thing that frustrates. Like I've seen all three of the movies, and like they're fine. They're good Hollywood movies. They're high budget. The cinematography is good, but like I think the thing that frustrates me is that like why are we glorifying assholes? Because that's the thing that frustrates me, especially within these systems. And like I like this. I understand that people want to believe in afterlife. I do. I get it. Like I want to too. I do. I can't, but because my skepticism brain's just like you don't have any proof of anything, Helen. So why are you holding on to bullshit? But I get it. I do, because I used to have the same want and desire to believe in things exist after you die. I get it.
I don't want to heaven, but I do want to haunt people.
I told I'm like, listen, I'm like, if I come back, I'm going to make your life miserable, especially for me. Like, you know, I'm going to haunt you and I'm going to expose you for masturbating. That's what's going to happen.
That's the whole reason why I wouldn't want the afterlife. Like, there's going to be ectoplasm everywhere, and I don't need my family members to see that.
But like, I think that's the idea of like, people want to believe that there's something that happens after we die. And I get it. I do. But then they give legitimacy to like con artists and people that like, because that was the thing that when I worked in the psychic center was people, some of them generally believe that they have powers, and some of them generally believe that they communicate with the dead. And they did a bunch of mental gymnastics to get there. I get it. Some people are just con artists, and they know, and they prey on vulnerable people that are dealing with really difficult situations, and they do not care. And it's hard to tell the charlatans, especially if you're in a high emotional state and you've been through a lot of shit, the charlatans from people that are actually being genuine. And even the people that are being genuine,
they still hurt people.
They still hurt people because you're selling them bullshit. And that's the thing that's so frustrating, because because when you're giving money to these like groups of people that are doing investigations and stuff like that, even if they're saying they're doing from a scientific method, you have to question the motive. Like, well, let's just say a theater's haunted. Let's just say it is. Let's just say that old theater that your ghost group used to go to is haunted. What is the point in trying to prove that it's haunted?
I mean, to show that there's a life after death. Sorry, my dogs really have opinions on this topic.
But also too is that I'm always like, is it a financial gain? Because if you can say a place is haunted, that's going to attract more people to your business because there's more people that have supernatural beliefs and blah, 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 blah. Like, I'm always looking at like, what is the angle?
Oh, yeah, I do worry about the follow the money thing, because that also is where conspiracy theorists always go. But yeah, a lot of them are definitely trying to swindle you. But I always just like, there's nuance on the follow the money kind of thing, because that's where vaccines are supposedly bad. Follow the money, Bill Gates kind of shit. So like, I'm always careful about applying that as an argument.
I'm not I think that just because I was in the industry and I saw what happened, that's where I get a little bit concerned. And I'm not saying that everyone I'm not saying this applies to everyone. There's I'm not saying that
for sure.
There's nuance and stuff like that. And some people just might want to legitimately know it, like, hey, is my place haunted? You know, like, because there's been weird shit happening and I can't explain it, you know, and if you're inclined to supernatural beliefs,
issues that they find there, like a gas leak or something like that is causing hallucinations and like migraines and stuff like that. So sometimes if people are really investigating and looking for explanations, they can find an explanation that will help them with the alleged haunting. But too many people are in the paranormal investigation area to exploit people and come up with ways to get money off of it. So
Talking
yeah, I
about
definitely agree with that.
exploitation, let's talk about the move to social media, because I've seen a few things on YouTube, but TikTok in particular is rife with fake ghost videos and things like that, whether it be ones that have been manipulated out in the open, but I see a lot where cameras have been set up in people's houses where they're doing their own paranormal investigations into hauntings that they're allegedly suffering. And these things are horrendously faked, but so many people are taken in by them. And do you think that's the kind of... It's very hard to go into somebody's house and investigate when they're claiming that they've got a ghost in there. And to say, when they're saying, look, I've got this video footage, I've filmed this, you can't just turn up and say, well, let me investigate that for you. But
You should ask though. And if they're not willing to let you investigate the house, there's no reason to take them on their word for it, because everybody should know nowadays that video can be edited, and people know how to do special effects to make drawers move. Like a corridor crew does a lot of debunking videos, is they'll find maybe it's going a little bit, something's moving a little bit too straight, so it has to be like on a string or something like that that's just kept out of camera. So there are people that work in special effects that can find where the little flaws are, or if you just have a good eye. I obviously don't have good eyes. Even with my glasses on, I can barely see shit. But so I can't debunk it. But just because you can't debunk it doesn't mean that it's not something that's debunkable. And if you're just getting video isn't enough anymore. Video might have been enough 100 years ago, but it's not enough right now.
You can buy a good editing and video effects program for $100.
Yeah, it's
to download on your system. It's no longer, something that just professionals are using.
Yeah,
so
I can't think of a single thing that could be put on video that would convince me that ghosts exist.
You can do it on Adobe. So but I think that I think there's this tendency for people, because, and YouTubers have brought this up before, not just on haunting videos, just on authenticity, that the three of us just having this conversation right now, how we are off the camera is a little different than how we're presenting ourselves now. It's just because of the medium that they're in. And I think that people, when they want to believe that the person that they're sitting is actually genuine. And if they're presenting a haunting video, they want to really believe that it's authentic, even though we all know that from TikTok to YouTube to Twitter to whatever social media that you're presenting, especially if you're doing videos and certain type of content that you want people to click on and garner views and stuff like that, that you're going to have a presentation that you have to go, well, this person, I tend to believe you're putting in the effort, because I tend to, when I see a deep fake or see really cool ghost videos and stuff, I'm like, that's a really good job. If I can see that, I'm like, wow, that looks really good. You did a really good job, but I don't think it's real.
Yeah. You can appreciate the artistry.
I can figure. Yes, it's like watching a movie. It's like, wow. I'm like I just watched House of the Dragon. There was dragons, and I was just like, wow. I'm like, this is I'm like, I want to ride a dragon.
Well, dragons are real.
They are real. Yes, but I don't sit there. But I know it's just the magic of film editing and artists and all these people that do all the work. And I think that's wonderful. But I think, especially for people that are younger, because TikTok is definitely a younger audience.
For sure.
They are like, oh, that must be. And if you tend to believe in supernatural things,
yeah, you can be amazed by it.
You can be like, oh, that's a real ghost. Where all of us are like, oh, that's really good editing. That's really good camera work. That's a really good, video software program that you have, and you understood, visual effects and how things work and stuff like that, and that's because we're educated on how visual effects work and how video editing works and all that type of stuff. So it tends to, and you have to wonder how many of those people are actually legitimate, that they actually think that, that stuff is real.
I think anytime I see an orb video, I believe those people believe what they're showing, and they think that's good evidence. But if they're using strings to open up doors, those people, I question whether they believe in ghosts. Maybe they're trying to make a better case so people believe it because they can't manifest it themselves. But I think those people are fake. I do believe the people with the orbs that they believe that dust could not have come of any other way. That has to be an orb.
That's fair. And I agree, because that was me, like, a few years ago. So I get it. I just get, like, we are living in an age where there's so much content for people to consume. And if you don't have your bearings about you, you can be taken in with a lot of shit.
Yep.
And I understand, like, what Richard was saying. It's like, what do we do? When you're on TikTok and you get like a 16-year-old that sees, like, a ghost video and thinks that ghosts are real, because they don't understand, how visual effects work and that type of stuff. It can make, like, you go, huh? Like, I had to explain to somebody that ghosts weren't real a couple of weeks ago. So,
I've had that conversation, but they don't.
Conversation.
I've had that conversation, and it's never really worked out. Like, I'm friends with people that believe in ghosts, so I've had that conversation multiple times, and they're usually stuck in their beliefs, and they'll say I've made good points, but ghosts are still real.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well. But for the large part, I find it much easier talking to kind of religious people and getting through to them than I do people who believe in the supernatural and stuff, and other elements of the supernatural. And
the ghost people I know usually aren't even religious, so it's definitely a different crowd.
Yeah, it is. Like, it's like, like, I've talked to atheists that believe in ghosts, so and I'm just like, really? Yeah. Because, like, my kind of idea, like, of ghosts has always stemmed from religion, that because of these ideas of, like, the afterlife and spirits and stuff like that. So I'm always like, really? You believe in ghosts? Okay.
You're not thinking, for some people it might be kind of a halfway house between religion and not atheism, though, when
paranormal,
and like, atheism is just a rejection of a God belief. It has nothing to do with, like, anything supernatural or anything like that. It's just like, you just say that, like, there is no, like, I don't have proof that there's a God. That's
do you have an experience of that, though, when people are coming out of religion and they go into these kind of, I feel like, softer beliefs that don't quite believe in a God but still cling on to elements of the supernatural?
That's what I did. I did a whole talk on it on our RFX podcast. I did about paganism and how people move from, because, like, religion, organized religion is very structured, and it just gives it can be very restricting to people. And that's why you'll get people that move from religion to spiritual. I'm a spiritual person. Like, I don't believe in, like, a religion, but I believe in a higher power. I believe in an alternate universe. I believe in a spirit world, whatever, mumbo jumbo they want to put in there. And that, I think that's what, people that are doing, like, these paranormal investigations and trying to find spirits in this other world, is because they're trying to insert a spiritual realm into the mundane. And I get the desire, and because, like, but, like, I've heard legitimate scientists say, like, if there was proof for this, we would present it. Like, we can see a bunch of different things on a thing, like, on on the different spectrums of light that our eyes can't perceive,
Yeah.
but other things that we can perceive. We have shown different levels of magnetism that we can't detect, but instruments can. If there was a thing that we could detect spirits and things like that, we would be able to show these things, but we haven't been able to pick them up. So why does, like, you know, EVPs and all this type of stuff, like, if this thing worked, we would be able to present it and show it with repeatable tests that these things were real, but we can't because they don't.
Yeah.
All right. And any final thoughts? I think we're getting to the end of this episode. You Richard, I think I kept interrupting you, so get your thoughts out. Wait till I'm done interrupting you, though, before you do that. Go ahead. You have my permission.
Yeah, thanks. You're so good to me. I think I think it
doesn't sound like you think a lot.
No, I don't. I don't think so. I think in this is in Paranormal Investigations. For me, I think are flawed from my experience of them anyway. They're flawed from the outset. When you have to, I said this earlier in the show, when you have to have a skeptic in the group, I think that says a lot about the kind of overall thing, because everybody should be going into, especially something like this, everybody should be going into it with the critical thinking hat on. You shouldn't have to have a person, a single person who represents critical thinking and reasonableness. Everybody should be going into it. And the fact that they're not says a hell of a lot about this whole field in general. And again, just to repeat myself, you know, just because there isn't an explanation for a particular phenomena, it doesn't mean that an alternative is suddenly right. That's what creationists try and do. You know, we don't believe in evolution, therefore God. Even if evolution was wrong, it doesn't mean God is right. And that's exactly the same kind of thing that happens in these ghost hunting groups. When you hear it so much. Well, how do you explain that? It doesn't fucking matter whether I can explain that or not. What matters is if you've got good evidence to suggest the proposition you're making. You know, let's go into this, and you know, and it's great fun going on ghost hunts and doing paranormal investigations. It really is. It really is. You can still do it and be skeptical at the same time. Let's get out of this idea of, you know, default ghosts exist and like we're bringing
they
along
do exist, Richard. you're just in denial.
It's funny actually, because I died half an hour before we started recording this show, so
oh, that's why you're so bright in there.
No,
all right.
Yeah, skepticism. Helen,
any final thoughts? And plug Recovering from Religion again.
Yeah, like, listen, like, I understand, like, wanting, because I've been there. I wanted to believe. I'm gonna be a Mulder. Like, I wanted to believe, but I don't have a good reason to. Like, and even with all this, and again, quote unquote, scientific evidence, it's not there. So, you know, and it's okay. Like, I like, watch your ghost hunting shows. Like, I'm not gonna dummy or yum. Like, if you want to watch your ghost hunting shows and you want to go on ghost hunting investigations, like, do it, you know, but like, have your brain on, you know, and if you discover something that you can't explain, get a scientific team in there and like have them do some shit, because what's the harm? You know, so that's the way I kind of look at it. But if you want to improve your skepticism skills, please contact us at Recovering from Religion. Please, you can call in at 1-866-I-DOUBT-IT, or you can go to www.recoveringfromreligion.org. You can talk to a live agent either way, schedule a chat, visit our resource page. We have a fundraiser coming up November 12th to help with our international people to get more resources and support groups and agents and are on the international side. So that would be a big help. You can come watch me because I will be on that fundraiser talking about it. So that'll be great. You can also win prizes. So prizes are fun. And we're going to play bingo. So once I get that information, I will send it to put into the doobly doo on this channel. And but if you or someone yourself is struggling with doubt or non-belief, or just wants some questions, need some resources, please reach out to us, because we are here for you on this journey into skepticism and becoming a more informed, enlightened person.
Sounds
That's the
fucking
goal.
awesome. That sounds like a good event. I'm going to try to make sure I'm watching it if I can.
Yep.
All right. And remember to keep questioning.
Interrogate your beliefs.
Well, you are falling out of it tonight. And stay skeptical. Thanks for coming on, Helen.
Thank you for having me.